All right, we are on.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Edwards. We are here today with Daniel Villanueva, who is the Vice President of Enrollment Management of UH Downtown. And we're going to talk a little bit today about Daniel, what he does, his journey to get there. He's got some really inspiring stories that I've heard from him before about his journey to where he is. And in the beginning, we're going to go over any announcements they have. Sergio, if you would share your screen with that.
Yeah, give me a second. You guys see him?
Not yet.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Leadership Houston XL announcements. Hope you guys made it to the luncheon. That was fantastic. Want to thank Key for all our hard work that she put together for our wonderful luncheon, celebrating the mayor and Sanjay Ramabhadran. Next slide. Oh yeah, and Randall was helping to put together a really great park. They built it in a day. Hancock Whitney helped sponsor that. And then we had Sergio and Daniel and Ben were at Bunnies on the Bayou volunteering.
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And then we had our tour of Glenwood Cemetery with Leadership Houston on Earth Day. And then just had the spring breakfast as well, April 28th at Junior League.
That was Change Happens.
Change Happens.
Dorito was organizing that one.
Oh, cool. And congratulations, Ramit, on your new job with Cisco, Senior Manager of Crisis Communications. And Rima shared the UN Association of Houston dialogue with the diplomats from the Consul General of Ukraine. Our class does really cool things.
Mm-hmm.
Busy folks.
And then just a reminder, I went to this last year. It was a blast. The 10th Annual Crawfish Festival for the Buffalo Shores National Museum is going to be really fun. I had a blast last year. It's benefiting Men Incorporated. The best crawfish I've had in Houston. It is a lot of fun to go. So I highly recommend that you guys show up this Saturday. Gates at 1 p.m. Sunday?
Yeah.
Is it Sunday? Okay. Oh, it is Sunday. I thought it was Saturday. I can go now. Fantastic.
Great.
And then Desmond they're kicking off the Buffalo Soldiers Museum Capital Campaign May 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. So hope we can all see y'all there. And Portia Jackson, she finished her United Way Project Blueprint fellowship. So kind of awesome. I hear, Sergio, have you done that before?
I did, yeah. It helps train folks for nonprofit board service. Kind of the ins
Oh,
and
that's
outs.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so she's ready to go.
And Randall was on TV again on Univision talking about financial literacy with Univision. And then Phil screaming Punch 9 for Harold Washington at TSU is going to be today at 4:30 if anyone can make it.
Oh, it's today. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize
it's today.
Okay.
Yeah. And our next happy hour on May 11th. I think we have come up with this, as been formally announced. I think we're going to be at Cidercade.
Yeah, it seems that's where we might end up. Should be fun.
All
That's
right.
it.
So Daniel, just quick introduction here. I feel like you have worked in multiple systems throughout, or been at multiple systems throughout the state of Texas. He is attended Blinn and then went to Texas Tech, where he got his bachelor's degree in political science. He has a master's in liberal arts, emphasis in counseling psychology from Texas Christian University, and then his doctorate at Texas A&M. So it is, again, as we know, Dr. Daniel Villanueva. Currently, he is at U of H downtown. Before that, he was at Lone Star College as well. And we've talked about before that, you've had a really different experience being community college versus, at the university system. And as I recall, that you are our first generation in college.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to turn this over to you. I know you've got, some, really great, interesting story. I've enjoyed hearing before. And if we get to it in the end, we'll talk about small animal wrangling.
Thanks so much, Dr. John. Let me see if I can share my screen. If it's going to allow me to share my screen.
I can see your screen.
You can?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think you can all see it now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the topic is leading a modern university, which is a complex topic in and of itself. I'm going to go quickly through a number of slides and share with you all just a little bit about my journey, the structure of higher education in Texas, the structure of higher education in the University of Houston system, here at the University of Houston downtown, a little bit about my research, my passion, as well as the status of higher education and the future of higher education. So this is kind of the overview of the presentation. I'll start out by talking about my journey to leadership and then go in sequential order here on the screen of the discussion topic. So my personal journey, there I am. Man, I look so adorable. Young man, born and raised in a small town, Texas, Rockdale, Texas. You probably have never heard of it. It's predominantly white rural town in central Texas. About 6,000 people live in the community. Grew up poor in a supportive family. My family was uneducated, but was really determined to help us become educated. I started my academic journey at a community college. Blinn College is where I started my academic journey, and it was post high school. And really, I went to the community college and went to college in general because my friends were going, and my parents knew that the only way to a better life was education, and they didn't necessarily know how we were going to pay for it or how I would do. And certainly, there were a number of challenges at first, both with finances and academic preparedness, as well as just transitioning from a small town to a college. Um, Here's a quote that I always start in terms of my presentations about why I do the work that I do and why I'm passionate about higher education. It's because I found it really hard to adjust to freedom without money, and engaged in a learning environment without any experience, and navigating a different culture, not only the cultures of different people and diversity, but a culture of higher education. And really understanding how to navigate academic excellence. So I went to the community college, and through the journey that I'm going to share with you are a number of failures that most people do not mention. And so most people look at a resume and they look at academic leadership and leadership in general and all the successes that people have. Interestingly enough, I try to focus on my failures and challenges that allowed me opportunities to reflect and grow. So I failed out of the community college as a first generation college student and had the opportunity to come back on a scholarship for music. And so it was only due to me being a music major that I was able to come back after a horrid first start. And I got an academic scholarship on music and decided that I would pursue music education. Met my current wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, at the community college in marching band. I was a drum major, she was in the band, and so we moved together at the community college. Really enjoyed my community college experience and always want to make mention of my career, my professional career, and my personal story, acknowledging the good work of community colleges. I transferred from community college to Texas Tech University, which is one of the best universities in Texas, if not the best university. Had a wonderful time at Texas Tech University. My girlfriend at the time, now wife, transferred to Texas Tech as well. We were both music education majors, majoring in music performance. Graduated from Texas Tech and then went to TCU for a master's degree in psychology and counseling. Didn't really know what I want to do, still don't really know what I want to do, but went ahead and went to TCU, had a fantastic experience, and was looking for a different academic experience from a local community college to a regional comprehensive university at the time, Texas Tech, to a private Christian university. And certainly there are extreme differences in these universities, but had a wonderful time at TCU and then went to Texas A&M to study higher education and educational leadership and received a PhD from Texas A&M after 10 years. And so I share this journey because my doctorate degree took me 10 years to complete as a working professional, as a father, as a husband, as someone who lived in Houston and commuted to Texas A&M because there was nothing called virtual education at the time. I drove after work every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 years back and forth to College Station to take classes and then come back and work the next day and complete homework as well as assignments. So my educational journey has been at all Texas institutions, community colleges, and universities. So my higher ed professional journey started right after I graduated. I started at New Texas Tech University working with new student orientation. I was an orientation leader and an involved student on campus. And so it was a natural transition to work for the university. And I believed that I would work for 2 or 3 years and then find a profession. And then I realized that people make careers in higher education and that you could get paid to work at a college or university. So my personal and professional journey really has been in education and of education. And I went to college in 2000 and I have never left. Both as a student, I finished in 2020, and I'm still a higher ed professional in 23, and so I've never worked outside of higher education and been in higher education the entire time. I worked at Blinn College in the admissions office. I worked in student affairs at Blinn College. I then transferred or got a promotion to Lone Star Sci-Fair, and I served as student affairs at Sci-Fair. I served in enrollment management at Lone Star College Sci-Fair. I was Dean of Student Services at Lone Star College North Harris. And then I came over to the University of Houston downtown for enrollment management, and now am serving in enrollment and student services as an executive here at the campus UHD. So that's my professional journey. It's a unique journey, as John mentioned. Most people are either exclusively at the community college or exclusively at the university. I'm one of very few who have made the transition from community college to the university, and so that's a unique perspective. My research, service, and passion are really in the areas listed above here. I'm actually a software implementation lead, and what that means is that I oversee the implementation and the migration of software systems for the university. And in our area, we have 43 different software solutions that we use. And so I don't have a degree in technology or IT. But lead the software integration on our campus from the student information system, which is the largest software solution that we use, all the way to diplomas and any other software solution that we use. I stumbled into software integration and technology. It wasn't something I was passionate about, but as someone who grew up in an age of computers and internet and technology, I found that I could do it very easily. In addition, I have done a lot of research and service in enrollment management. And enrollment management is relatively a new field in higher education. It really surfaced in the early 2000s, where universities realized that they're in a different environment, and that enrollment headcount and credit hours, which are the number of students you have and how many classes they take, really matter to the budget of the institution. And I'll share a little bit about that here in just a moment. So a field was created in the late 2000s while I was in college, called enrollment management, and it's really a new division within higher education. And so enrollment managers typically are over your admissions, financial aid, revenue budgeting, um, the registration of students, software technology, and managing engagement with external constituents, high schools, community colleges, nonprofits, legislative branches for the management of the institution. I have exclusively worked at Hispanic serving institutions, and that's a federal designation that allows for institutions, both community colleges and universities, who have enrollment over 25% that are designated as Hispanic to receive certain amount of additional funding from the federal government, as well as grant opportunities. And so I've done a lot of research and consulting on Hispanic serving institutions and how institutions should serve Hispanic students and Hispanic populations. I've done a lot of research and presentations on college student behavior and the evolution of the college student from the 1960s to today. And a lot has changed with college students. And I'm not only attuned to it by the work that I do, but also the research with students specifically. I am the higher education funding expert in higher education for news for Houston. So if there's ever a topic about higher education, from Fox News to ABC to Channel 2, they reach out for me to come on air to talk about higher education funding and administration. And that's particularly because of my research and degree in higher education. So in universities, you have faculty who study biology, you have faculty who study, sociology, business. My study is on universities and colleges. So I literally study colleges and universities nationwide, with the specific interest in Latinos in higher education and the behavior of students, populations, and communities of the Latino communities. But I'm best known, and the work that I'm most proud of is academic capitalism. And most of you may be saying, like, what the heck is this? I'll talk a little bit about it at the end of the presentation because it talks about where higher education is today and the future of higher education. That was my dissertation topic. I spent 10 years researching it. I interviewed 180 faculty, staff, chancellors, presidents, and deans all across the United States regarding this topic, and just find it immensely interesting, and I'm probably the only one. Okay, so want to give you a little bit of context about higher education in Texas and how community colleges and universities operate. And this is of specific interest because most people are just unaware of how higher education in Texas is managed, who manages it, how it's funded, and what they can do. So pictorially here, you can see that on the left is the structure for community colleges in Texas. There are 48 community colleges or community college systems within the state of Texas. And each of those community colleges are run and funded by taxpayers. So each community college has a district that's drawn out on a map that's labeled a service area. In that service area, people who live in that service area pay taxes to the community college. So community colleges are funded in large part by taxpayers, but they're also funded by the students who pay enrollment and tuition to the university or to the community college. The taxpayers get to vote on Board of Regents or Board of Directors, and the taxpayers elect a 9-member Board of Regents board that then hires the chancellor, that then hires the presidents. So although the community colleges are relatively complex, you can see that the system is relatively streamlined. So for instance, Houston Community College, there's a board of trustees. They are voted in by their districts, the taxpayers, and the board of trustees then hires the chancellor. And the chancellor then hires the campus presidents, and then the campus presidents hire everyone else on the campus. In contrast, the universities in Texas are funded by state taxpayers. So everyone in the state pays for universities. And the governor is who really runs universities in Texas. So the governor will appoint and nominate a board of regents. In large part, the board of regents, 95% of the time, have political allegiance, affiliation, and commitment to the governor. That's in any administration. And so they are political appointments, and the board of regents are appointed by the governor. The governor appoints the board of regents. The board of regents then hires the chancellor, who then hires university presidents. So in Texas, there are a number of systems that have a chancellor, and then each of the systems then have university presidents. So for instance, in Houston, we are a part of the University of Houston system. And so the governor appoints our board of regents, and our board of regents hires our chancellor, who is Renu Couture, and then our chancellor hires campus presidents for each of the campuses. So when you look at the University of Houston system, there's the University of Houston main campus, there's the University of Houston Clear Lake, University of Houston Downtown, and University of Houston Victoria. Those are 4 individual accredited institutions. So they operate in isolation of each other, but they are part of the University of Houston system. I am a system employee, although I'm on the University of Houston campus. We are all University of Houston system employees. So we are funded by taxpayers and at the will and discretion of the governor's office. So in terms of executive leadership at a university, I made a really broad hierarchy just so that you could see the reporting lines as well as duties and responsibilities. For universities, there's a university president. Typically, there's a vice president and a provost. The provost is the academic manager of the institution, so they're really managing faculty, curriculum design, faculty affairs, research, scholarship. And the vice presidents are really managing all other areas. The vice president of administration and finance is managing the budget and finance. You have a vice president of enrollment management, a vice president of university advancement that's really looking at fundraising. And so the reporting lines for these really look like this, right? For provosts, it's academic deans, academic chairs, and faculty. For vice presidents, you have non-academic deans, you have assistant associate vice president, directors, and managers. So that's in large part the university structure. So what I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is the status of higher education and my research that I've done on higher education. And I chose to present this because it really, I think, helps educate people outside of higher education about where we are and why things are the way they are. There are a lot of misconceptions about universities and colleges. And in large part, the greater population are just uninformed about some of the things that are happening in higher ed. So this is an attempt to conceptualize the research on academic capitalism and hopefully help you all understand where we are. And if I do a good job, you'll leave here understanding. If I don't, you'll be more perplexed. And I hope you leave here understanding. So academic capitalism is a term that was coined in the late 2000s, and it's really taking a look at colleges and universities and the transformation that has occurred with them. And it really evolves from the United States moving into this globalization era in the 1990s with Ronald Reagan, George Bush and Bill Clinton really pushing for the United States to engage and interact in globalization and moving industry beyond the United States bounds, which really helps industry and our economy, but has some ramifications on the education system. Globalization really creates a new economy for the United States, and in that new economy, jobs are outsourced, and it really makes the United States really look at our economy in a very different way. And one of the things that happens is this idea of higher education and whether higher education is a public good and should be funded by public monies, or is it a private good that individuals should fund as themselves? Uh, and what we see in the study of higher education is the funding model shifting that requires colleges and universities to be more corporate and to really integrate managerial techniques that corporate and industry have kind of established as protocol for industry that was foreign to higher education. And it really makes higher education, colleges and universities, engage in the marketplace behavior rather than being educational enterprise. So this is really supposed to show how universities have moved from educational enterprises where the idea of thought, the idea of innovation, the idea of research for research, the idea of a marketplace of ideas and counter narratives could be fostered to a business where you're worried about funding and you're worried about seats and students and education and ROI and really changing the way universities are managed. So the origins of higher education, if you go back to its inception, really is made for higher education is created at Oxford for wealthy families, particularly white families, and white young men that were astute and had high income and needed to be groomed. And so the idea was that we would create universities that would allow them to be groomed for ministry as well as career and workforce. And so the origins really focus on how do we teach these students, how can we create research for better knowledge of the society, and how do we provide a service to our community. The new era is really how do you also fund this? And through funding, how do you pay for it? And the reason this new era has evolved is because globalization, neoliberalism, as well as the market has dictated that higher education is now a private good, whereas it started as a public good. And what I mean by that is society viewed colleges and university in its origins up to the late 1990s as a public good, that our tax dollars would be funding universities because those that would go to universities and would get educated would leave and become critical thinkers, active members of the local government, as well as engaged in civics, as well as just better people. There's a lot of research that people with degrees live longer lives, have higher socioeconomic status, take care of themselves better, give back to the communities. So the idea that we would fund higher education was at the foundation. And what that means is that universities received state funding from each of their state. For instance, universities on average in 1978 received 79% of their total budget directly from the state of Texas, meaning that they would just get this money and the rest they would rely on tuition and fees to supplement the remaining balance needed. Well, the shift has occurred that now higher education, college, universities, and a degree is a private good. And what that means is that if you're a student and you want to go and get your degree, you need to pay for it. So the state is no longer going to fund that education. So in 2019, on average in the state of Texas, 11% of university budgets came from the state of Texas. So you can see a transformation from 78% of the budget funded to 11%. And really, as anything in our world, you fund things that matter to you. And it's not isolated to the state of Texas, right? This is a movement across the United States. And so the cost of tuition and fees to supplement the offset of state funding has risen. And so there are those that had graduated in the 70s and 80s and are perplexed by how universities have just raised tuition and fees exorbitantly and just really, are charging students an immense amount of money without understanding that the state subsidized almost 80% in the 80s and 90s and are now subsidizing 11%. And in this next biennium, it might go down to 8%. So the cost then has shifted to families and students. And really, the idea is that institutions have been state funded and they've moved to a model of being state managed, which means that we still have to be managed by the governor's office and the state taxpayers, but we're not really receiving all of the funding that we once did. So it really calls to question the value of education when individuals have to fund their own education, as well as families who in large part are under-resourced through finances. So that's created kind of a conundrum for colleges and universities because those that are managing universities are not necessarily equipped with corporate and industry techniques and managerial skills to lead universities. So typically, college presidents and chancellors come from faculty, meaning they have a PhD in biology, a PhD in zoology, a PhD in physics, and they have worked their way up to leading an institution. And leading an institution in a new era beyond research, service, and scholarship really requires academic leaders to be entrepreneurial, to engage in market-like activities, and to step into a new realm of management that includes key performance indicators, a whole bunch of things that were foreign to higher education. So higher education is not prepared for that. There aren't that many college presidents and universities that have those skill sets, in large part because they've been managing universities and have come up from faculty. So the status of higher education, if you aren't aware, colleges and universities across the United States are closing. Since the start of the pandemic, I think the Chronicle of Higher Education has kept a running list. There are upwards of 700 colleges and universities that have closed in the United States. In large part, those are private liberal colleges in the Northeast, but there are public universities all across our country that are closing due to enrollment declines and funding challenges. So, of course, the impact of a pandemic has transformed higher education and students, right? Because students had a year and a half to 2 years of online learning that they really enjoyed, but were not successful in, according to the data, large part across the United States. And faculty and staff who at one time swore that you could not teach and engage students online have really learned how to teach and engage students online. The challenge is that the state of Texas has invested a lot of money in the buildings that we're in, as well as future monies for growing universities in terms of infrastructure for technology and buildings. And so you're at an inflection point whereby universities are saying, well, we need more money, but we're not really sure how we could use that money because we don't need as many buildings as we had because we've had an increase in online learning and we need more technology. And so the impacts of the pandemic have really transformed the way higher education engages students inside and outside the classroom. In addition, we are tied to our legislative agenda for the state of Texas. And you all may or may not be following the legislative agenda for the state of Texas in granular detail. However, there are several bills that are being proposed by state legislatures across the Senate and the House that have direct impact on higher education. Two that I can speak of just off the top of my head is one, ending tenure for faculty in the state of Texas moving forward, as well as the second, ending diversity, equity, and inclusion at all state universities to include faculty and staff who research that, as well as positions that engage diversity, equity, and inclusion work in higher education. So those are two legislative bills that are surfacing and may pass this biennium, which will further transform the university system in the state of Texas. The tenure bill really calls for the removal of tenured faculty moving forward. It allows for everyone who currently has tenure to remain as tenured faculty, but for universities to no longer offer tenure moving forward. Tenure affords the right for faculty to have academic freedom, to explore challenges at the university, as well as to engage in scholarship and research that may be counter to legislative priorities. In addition, we have a changing and evolving college student, and our college students look completely different today than they did when you all probably were in college. With the shift of higher education moving from a public good to a private good, there are calls of questions from legislators, families, students who are really questioning the cost of higher education and its return on investment. If I pay $80,000 for a 4-year degree, do I get a job upon completion? And does that job actually in turn pay for the degree that I got? So that is a challenge that higher education is dealing with. And, you know, in large part, there are graduates who are completing degrees. And because the foundation of higher education was built upon research, scholarship, critical thinking, as well as teaching, students may find themselves ready for the workforce academically, but socially, or as well as curriculum tying directly to careers, challenged in not being able to get a job with the degree. So for the future of higher education, universities and colleges are going to have to evolve. They're going to have to be innovative and engage in technology so that they can transform the bones and structure of universities for the future. They're going to have to engage with industry as well as community partners to ensure that the curriculum is aligned with what industry is needing. And we're going to have to make our case to the public of the value of higher education, the value of a 4-year degree. And that work happens every day. There are students and families that come to orientation and come to register at UHD, and the dad is making a great argument about his son not taking the opportunity for the scholarship to come to UHD, but rather working in construction and being able to make $60,000 immediately, whereby this is going to take 4 years and we're actually going to have to pay you all. And helping the low-income minorities that the University of Houston downtown, in large part, educate, understand the value of a short-term loss for a long-term gain, and having those reflective conversations with families and parents about that is true. Your student can leave today and go do that, but can they continue to do that work at the age of 60? And what does their lifestyle look like? And what health benefits do they have? And once they have mastered construction, can they manage the construction site? And beginning for them to think in long term and the value of education. The populations that will be for the future of higher education are those that have some college and no degree and are really needing to come back and complete their degree. We see a decline in freshman students across the United States. And so colleges and universities will look different in the way that they recruit students as they shift from high school students to students who are in the workforce who maybe went and got an associate's but didn't complete a bachelor's, or started at a university, got 30 hours and have no degree to complete. And higher education has to come to the realization that we are in a consumer market driven industry and students have choices and options and belonging and degree, timely degree progress, as well as career placement really matters to the students. So in all, the future of higher education looks positive. There are challenges moving forward, but I hope this short talk has allowed you to have a better understanding of my role at the university, as well as the status of higher education and perhaps a glimpse into the future. And back to you, John.
Well, thank you, Daniel. That's a great talk. I know I have some questions, but anyone else? I saw Dorita, you had one in the chat, and I raised my hand instead of hitting the chat. She had asked, since the region appointments are political and hiring follows those appointments, with removal of tenure and DEI, is university leadership, speaking out on that and fighting that? What is it? I mean, obviously, this is who the regents are appointing the leadership, and this is a government, federal government, state government that's appointing the regents. So, what is being done to advocate against that?
Well, I don't think you can advocate against your supervisors in any industry. So the answer to that is that no, there's no pushback or advocacy of the contrary to the bills. The bills have passed the Senate and are in the House, and from what we understand, it's not likely that they will pass in the versions that they are today. So we are monitoring very closely. It does have severe impacts on higher education in Texas because leading researchers and leading faculty will leave state Texas institutions and go to other institutions. So it can have implications on the work that we do. As far as diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is more likely to pass. I think about the different ways that we advocate in our work, and the name change and the title change may come as a result of legislation, but the work is not going to change, right? We are still, you can't tell me the work at UHD is not diverse. We are the most diverse university in the in the southern United States. And so our work is diversity, right? It does become more of a bigger concern for larger universities that are primarily white institutions and how you're integrating students of color in those institutions. And it's extremely important. And as someone who has a lived experience in higher education, I went to Texas Tech, which is the second most conservative university in the United States. I can tell you I was not indoctrinated. No one told me that I needed to believe one way or another. But the perception, I think, from society is that if you go to higher education, or any education at this point, there is some indoctrination to liberal philosophies. And really, the DEI work is teaching about our past and educating our future to not repeat that work.
Anyone else have any questions at all? I guess I would ask real quick. I know that at the community college level, there's been a push, and I know Alamo Community Colleges does this, and I'm familiar with Mike Flores and what they're doing, that there's been a lot of free, like tuition-free classes for a lot of these kids coming out of high school, or having community college classes given in high school. Do you think that's a model that's sustainable, that they're going to be able to do statewide with that? Versus, I know that with higher education, with universities and colleges, that model is probably not possible because of the costs.
So yes, I think everyone should engage in community colleges, and I do believe that the model will be expanded and continue to expand in Texas for community colleges. Most community colleges are receiving the vast majority of their budget from taxpayers, their local taxpayers. So the tuition and fees aren't as important and as impactful to the budget. And if the state of Texas continues to supplement some of that, I think that that will be an opportunity. I am a huge proponent for community colleges. I went to a community college. Anyone that has a child who's thinking about universities, I say you should engage in the community college. And not that I say, don't go to a university, but there's so many ways to engage in a community college to integrate it into your degree. For instance, if you're going to the University of Texas starting fall, look at community college classes this summer to get you ahead. Think about coming home for summer and taking community college classes between your freshman and sophomore year. On average, a community college class, a 3-hour class, costs you about $180. On average, in the state of Texas, a 3-hour university class costs you about $2,800. So the cost difference is just completely astronomical. So when I look at my education from Texas Tech, my 4-year degree does not say Blinn College / Texas Tech. It says Texas Tech University, but half of my credits came from the community college. And so it's not for everyone. I'm not saying everyone should start there, but I think most people should integrate it within their educational journey to subsidize and lower the cost of your 4-year degree.
All right, just seeing if there's any other. Oh, Sergio, go for it.
I have a question. So you kind of took an interesting route to where you were. What is a more traditional pathway? Say someone that's interested in kind of getting to where you are, what would you recommend they do?
Well, most people come from the faculty and have taught at the university and have migrated their way up. I am unique in that I am qualified to be a faculty. I have the credentials to be a faculty, but I have started off on student affairs and enrollment management. And there has been a shift in higher education to move leadership to industry as well as non-academic backgrounds because of the requirements of leading a university today. So for me, I would say get involved in teaching adjunct, get involved in academic leadership, explore the university. My route is non-traditional. I am younger than most people in my role. I am probably the only Hispanic vice president in Houston and maybe in the state of, there's probably 3 or 4 of us in the state of Texas at the universities. So there are far and few in between minorities leading universities. And I would say get educated, get involved, and incorporate industry techniques into your work to be able to quantify the impact that your team has and to be able to fund your university.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. That was awesome. I really, very informative. I think we're all concerned about, the future of higher education and where it's going, and we're going to hope that the House squashes some of these bills going forward. But remind everybody to go check out the crawfish boil this weekend and come to Cidercade next Thursday. And I'll leave it to Sergio if we're going to have another one of these coming up next month or not. But thank you again, Daniel, for being here today. This is a great lecture. I love hearing your story. And Sergio, thank you for setting this up, as always.
Yeah, my pleasure. We will have one coming up likely later this month with Francisco Sanchez. So look forward to that one.
Awesome.
Great stuff.
Right,
great stuff.
Great stuff, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so
All right.
much. If I can ever help, let me know.
I'll be reaching out to you. That was some real good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Daniel.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See y'all soon.